Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the FlowCast. This is the podcast for information and inspiration on your journey to finding your flow. In this episode of the podcast, we have Mallory Graham on. She's been a huge help for me in getting Flow Spa up and running. She's my business mentor previously at the Peterborough Business Advisory Center, and now off on her own doing her own thing and really doing an awesome job with promoting digital marketing and just really an expert in that area. So in this conversation, we get into a lot of discussion about digital marketing as well as her thoughts on some of the gurus in the marketing world and just everything to do with her passion with marketing and online marketing. So it was a really awesome conversation. We got really deep into talking about her passions, which I think helped to show her kind of the path towards the flow state and different things that she could incorporate into her own life for improving and the growth that she's so passionate about. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and without further ado, here's Mallory Graham. More so today, not necessarily, we don't necessarily need to talk about floating or anything, but just finding out like what you're passionate about and sort of the kind of goes into the whole like the flow of it. So as like a new guest on the podcast, I kind of want to dive into what that means first and just like explain to you a little bit about the flow state, and then we can kind of guide the conversation from there. So
okay.
Did we hit record on the video?
Yes, I think. Should I check? You want to check? Is the red light on?
Oh yeah, it's recording.
Perfect.
So, so the flow state is kind of that state of peak performance that we get into where we're kind of out of being self-conscious. So you're really, some people refer to it as being in the zone, mm-hmm. and just totally focused on the present moment, which ties very closely into meditation and everything. But flow is more about like that peak performance. So it's kind of where you're balancing the line between anxiety and boredom perfectly, because if you're doing something that is challenging but too challenging, you start to falter, you start to fail a little bit because it's too hard. But if you're on the opposite side of that sort of perfect flow state line, then things are just not challenging enough, you're not growing from it, you're not building greater potential in mm-hmm. what you do. So one of the questions that we'll kind of start with, and then I think where the conversation will lead is likely in what you're passionate about. But so would you say that there's something in your life that you've found your flow in?
It's a very good question. So I think that how you were talking about your flow towards boredom and then excitement, or things that you're having anxiety or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I have kind of I could compare that to Tony Robbins. He has his whole 6 needs, I think they are.
Yeah.
So he has right. Certainty and uncertainty. Mm-hmm. So you have the need for certainty in your life or uncertainty. Everyone has a need for both. Mm-hmm. And I know that traditionally I have had more of a need for certainty. I wanted to know what my life's going to entail. I wanted to know, okay, right. This is where I'm going to be going to university. This is what I'm going to do after university. This mm-hmm. is my job. This is what this is the direction. This is my goal. I was very, very goal oriented.
Yep.
And not until recently I've started noticing that I get bored easily with things. And I think it was because I felt that my need was for that certainty when really there was an underlying uncertainty there.
Yeah.
So I need that excitement and that stimulation and push to try new things. Mm-hmm. So now I've tried to sort of recognize that and shift into a more of an uncertain and being okay with things being uncertain, mm-hmm. Instead of just falling back onto that default, preconditioned, what I thought that life was about.
Right.
Right. So it's kind of changes your life a little bit, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
But yes, I'm a very ambitious person. So I think when it comes to what drives me and what I'm super passionate about, I'm very passionate about a lot of things.
Okay.
So I'm very passionate about inclusion.
Mhm.
So inclusion of all sexualities and backgrounds and ethnicities and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm also very passionate about contribution to the world. So everyone contributing in a way that they can. So that's maybe very important to me, not necessarily everyone, but I'm very passionate about contributing as much as I can and
Yeah.
giving back and finding solutions for people. Like that's something that I've realized is really feeding my soul. Is if I'm finding someone who's had, or they're experiencing an issue, or they have a problem with their business or personal or whatever, and overcoming that is very challenging for them, and if I'm able to provide them with a solution or something that is helping them, it's so rewarding.
Mhm.
And that's something that I never thought was there, but I'm realizing, whoa, like that's there, and it's huge. So my passions have kind of shifted a little bit. But yeah, so does that kind of answer
Very
the
cool.
question?
Yeah. So, in line with that, can you think of sort of instances in your day or across like any time frame, the things that get you like really immersed in the present moment where you lose track of time? What things kind of do that for you?
That's a good question.
Or you might not be there yet. That's
Right.
totally fine too.
Honestly,
and that's kind of what the journey with this podcast and like the mission with the
Yes.
business is, helping people get to those points too.
Yes. I think that because I've never had trouble with what do you love, like the
Mhm.
question. Like, you know, you say write down a list of everything that you love, or like courses that you take, for example. You know how
Mhm.
when you're in school and you're like, what courses do you want to take?
Yeah.
I always wanted to take all of them because I thought everything was interesting, and I just
Yeah.
love learning.
Yeah.
So one of those things could actually be like online courses. So when I get into an online course, right now I'm taking one on list building, so
Cool.
how to build your email list and grow it exponentially.
Yeah.
And I'm just a huge nerd, and I find like time escapes me when I do that.
Yeah.
So right now that's what's hot for me right now. But maybe in a month's time, once I've kind of learned that,
Mhm.
something else will be new and exciting. So I think I think it's just learning keeps me motivated, and whatever I'm super excited about learning right now,
Yeah.
right?
So yep.
And even as I've been starting my YouTube channel and learning more about that, it's like, oh, next thing I know, it's like 11:30 at night, and normally, like, before I go to bed at like 9:30,
Mhm.
and it's like I don't even want to go to bed because I just want to work on this, and it's exciting, and I'm
Yeah.
learning, and so for me, it's not usually one consistent thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Because my passions have always been like kind of not all over the place, but I've just always just loved like advancing myself and growing,
Mhm.
right? Like you were saying earlier, growing.
Yeah. No, that's a good answer, and that I
Mhm.
think that definitely taps into it. So what are some of the things you've learned with the list building course that or are they sort of trade secrets?
No, they're not trade secrets. What I've learned so far, because I'm only about a quarter of the way done, I've learned that like creating a list, an email list is like your greatest asset, right? So
Totally.
when you're growing your following on the social media networks, you are at the mercy of those networks. So if they
Mhm.
decided to shut down,
Yeah.
you lose all your followers, all that work that you've done, it's kind of gone, right?
Yeah.
So the goal is to funnel those people to your email list,
Yeah.
whether it's through like some type of freebie and often getting them on your list. So then you actually own that. That's an asset.
Right.
And then so as you're growing your audience and growing your list, and then developing whatever product that you're wanting to release,
Mhm.
or announcement that you want to share, then you'll have all these engaged users that
Yeah,
are already
totally.
kind of tapped in and following what you're saying already.
Yeah. What's your favorite go-to with that? Because you mentioned sort of you kind of have like the freebie. You can, if you're running like some sort of business where you're trying to build a list, you can also put in an offer for X% or X dollars off something. Like, what's
Right.
your personal favorite, or have you noticed have you done any A/B testing to figure out which ones work best for you?
For the freebie?
Sure, for whatever offer. So like, if you want to call it a freebie, that's sort of what I refer to it as well too.
So the offer that you're presenting with in exchange for their information, right?
Yeah.
So typically it's either like a freebie or a coupon or whatever, right? So I think it's completely dependent on whether, like, on what it is that you're offering in your business, right?
Totally, yeah.
So for the trading post, offering a 10 or 15% off your first purchase coupon, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas for my digital marketing services, offering a digital marketing guide, like introductory for beginners and small businesses, that's totally makes sense for that. So
I've read that and it's awesome.
Oh,
it
thank
looks
you.
great and it's a lot of value for like that freebie. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like
Means
it a
a
lot.
lot.
Yeah, no worries.
Good.
So I definitely agree with those different aspects. And I think each person can kind of play around with, and you should be doing sort of that A/B testing, whether even for, well, just as an example, like to give somebody like a discount of something, even if it's for like any kind of store, might be like biting off more than you necessarily need to chew. If you've got like a lot of information, sometimes people take more value in that. It also showcases your expertise.
Right.
And so, for example, I've put together for the people that subscribe to our email list, get like a how to make the most out of your float, but it's also constantly evolving into other sort of ebooks, that can be offered, rather than necessarily just being like this much dollars off your first float or something like that. So it's like, it's good to constantly evolve it, but I think I'm sort of big on the whole showcasing expertise in everything. So
yeah, for sure.
So,
And it's funny that you say that. I've actually tried to brainstorm ways that we could provide expertise to a trading post customer.
Yeah.
Like how to, I don't know, whether it's how to choose your most favorite moccasin or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if, depending on the level of education that's required for the industry and for that business. Like I feel like floating is an industry where you can be like there's so many benefits and it's so deep.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
the depth of the business in and of itself, there's so much content around that. Whereas like a retail store where you're selling gifts, a coupon might be the best way to get that quick offer.
Yeah, it totally
right?
could.
But in terms of other types of freebies, I've actually been asked by people to maybe shift my freebie offering into a startup checklist.
Yeah.
Because a lot of clients know me as a like entrepreneurship coach and stuff. So I might start doing like an A/B test to be like, hey, are people wanting this digital marketing guide or are they wanting a startup checklist? Because that's another area that I can definitely offer that value in.
Yeah.
And if that's something that I decide to pursue and see what the interest is in there, a checklist would be a really good offering. But whether it's a checklist or a guide or any type of like knowledge that you're providing people, and I think the most important thing is that one, it's not too much information, so you're not overwhelming them. It's something that they can quickly get a quick win, right? They can get the information and quickly take some value of it right away without having to do too much work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So I kind of feel like your area of expertise, at least from what I know you with, is like this marketing stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's, I don't know, that's one of the areas you're most interested in, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It is, for sure. And I think that it's totally in the eye of the beholder. Like, to you, because you're more advanced in your business, then you can appreciate and understand what I'm talking about marketing.
Right.
Whereas someone who has no experience in business or they haven't even been there yet, they're thinking they don't know much about it at all, their level of interest would be at the entrepreneurship stage because that's the only thing that would be somewhat relevant to them.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. And I mean, I guess I did, spent a lot of time studying and learning like the marketing stuff myself beforehand to be able to come into the conversation at a different level, but definitely eye-opening, with some of the marketing seminars you put on and stuff, just seeing that different level in different business owners. And it's cool because it's a reminder that there's tons of people, no matter what level you're at in
Right.
whatever you're doing, you've always got tons of people in your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you can help them grow from there.
At all different stages, right?
But so I kind of want to get into some of these more interesting questions
Let's do it. that
have to do a little bit more about marketing, but maybe even just where like the beginners start as well.
Sure.
So yeah, let's start from there and we'll just build on the conversation. So where would you say like small business owners should start in, let's focus primarily on digital marketing, because that seems to be where, in my opinion, you get the best bang for your buck, and I think you would agree in today's world that it's super expensive for marketing efforts, but you can really get a lot out of those sort of microtransactions that you get through digital. So where would somebody start? Because if you're running like a small business, whether you're just getting started up or you've been in it for a while, like there's a lot that you can be doing online, but how do you find the time, or what's the best thing? What do you think?
Well, I definitely think that the first thing that you need to do is ask yourself what it is you're trying to achieve, right, in your marketing efforts. Like, are you super busy already? Are you trying to get more leads coming in the door? Figure out a goal for yourself. Like, why are you doing this at all? Why do you want to do marketing?
Yeah, that's super important.
Right. Are you needing to increase sales? Like why are you even asking yourself this question in the first place?
Yeah.
And then another thing to ask is, which is often overlooked, like more so than you would think, is who is your ideal customer? So people do not, and that is all like really marketing strategy is really, really understanding who your customers are and what they want, what they care about, because your business and the value that you're offering is what is important to them.
Yeah.
Right? So whatever they care about and the worth of your business, all that matters is what they think.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So understanding who your customers are, segmenting them out into, okay, we've got groups that care about this, groups that care about that.
Yeah.
And understanding how they're shopping, how they're making their decisions, what motivates them, what things they care about, what things they don't care about, what channels they're using. So are they online? Are they using Instagram or Facebook? Like, how are they making their decisions about life in general?
Yeah.
Right? Where are they hanging out online? Where are they hanging out offline? You really, really need to just get to know your customers. That's the hardest thing, and that's what I would tell anyone that's first starting, is to answer those questions.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely it's the hardest thing, but once you do that, everything else becomes exponentially easier, because you've actually got, whether you want to call them goals or sort of a checklist, you've got that idea of where you need to be going online or offline, and who you're targeting and for what reason. But it all comes down to, I know a lot of people like Seth Godin say, if you don't know the outcome, you shouldn't be putting in, whether you're putting in dollars or whether you're just putting in time and effort into a post. If you don't know what you're tracking at the end of the day, you probably need to figure that stuff out before you get into the putting those dollars in, and just kind of, because that's what happens, is it just goes down the drain, sort of, if you don't have, whether you know those conversions that you're tracking or anything like that.
Right, yes. So like if you're going to do any type of marketing activity, like sometimes I speak with small business owners and they say like, what hashtag should I use? Or what do you think about this post? And I'm saying, and then the first thing I say to them is, who are you trying to reach with this post? Like, what is the point of doing this post?
Yeah.
Right? What are you trying to accomplish? Because every post that you create, every piece of content that you put out there, whether it's a tweet or a blog post or a video, or no matter how big or small it is, it has an intention and it has the possibility to be huge or not, right? So you could make it, it could be a game changer for you or not. So every single one of those pieces of content has the opportunity to be a game changer for you. So I think that if you have an intention of what it is you actually want to do with that piece of content, like whether you're trying to turn someone from a stranger of your business to, okay, now they're aware of your business, to someone who already knows about your business to, okay, now I'm actually thinking about buying, right? So how you want to move them through that buyer journey, because you can't turn someone and from a stranger into a loyal raving fan in one step. Like one post cannot possibly do that. It's impossible. So understanding that whole journey and what actual task that specific post or piece of content is meant to achieve.
Very cool. So a lot of people studying or into marketing know about this character, this man, myth, legend online, Gary Vaynerchuk, often known as Gary V. And so what you just tapped into there is kind of his whole philosophy on document, don't create, and kind of like around the, we're talking a little bit about the creation aspect. What do you think of that whole document, don't create idea? And so it kind of, what it boils down to with him is just, a lot of in the scenes, in the trenches, like day in the life of stuff. If you're like an expert or if you're sort of enmeshed in whatever you're doing, you're already talking about those things. You're already like creating the content, but it's in your daily life. So what do you think about that? And do you agree or disagree with his whole like document, don't create idea?
I definitely think that documenting is very, very important. I've heard both sides of the coin. I've heard very influential people say like, no, you should be creating value. It should be original content. But I think that you can meet somewhere in the middle. So if you're creating original content like once a week, then that is a lot. So if once a week you're creating something that's original, and then the rest of the days you're documenting the process of creating that content, and sharing people in on your journey. I think that there's a lot to be said for that, because creating things that are original, that are completely original, there's a lot of work that goes into that. And what actually is original, like what hasn't already been done before, that's something that can be debated as well, right?
Essentially nothing, right?
Right,
Maybe you do it in different forms or something, or different styles, but no.
Right, so it might be your own spin on it, which means, yes, it is original, but is it not? Like, there's so many debates that can be had, but I think that when you're talking about what your competitive advantage is, right? Like when we're talking about Flow Spa, what do you think the competitive advantage is? I have my opinion, but what do you think it is?
Sure. I definitely think, or I'm definitely striving towards the sort of the things that I value personally.
Exactly, and that's what it is.
And and like sort of expertise and knowledge is something that I value. So that's been enmeshed in the brand is the knowledge and expertise, and also doing everything we can to make sure the customer experience, because that's another thing that I'm really passionate about, and just think I'm not necessarily just me myself, but that's the way I like to lead a business, is into a better customer experience, and so we put a ton of effort into that, and like I'm constantly trying to improve every little aspect I can, like buying shoe horns so that people that need to slip back into their shoes.
Extra effort.
And I mean those are small things, but they make a big difference.
Right. Yeah. So that was kind of the point I was getting at. For competitive advantage is there might be someone out there who is doing kind of what you are already wanting to do, but you are the competitive advantage, right? So if you haven't done it, then it hasn't been done.
Right.
So the spin that you put on it is unique, right? So yes, there might be tons of digital marketers out there, or if I'm hopefully in the future going to create like digital marketing courses delivered online. Yes, there's already lots out there, but it'll be unique if it's from me, because I have my own experiences that will be different for my target clients, because my experiences are unique and haven't been done before. So understanding and appreciating those unique things kind of is very aligned with the documentation, because it's very much so your journey, right? So letting people into your journey, that then they'll form that connection with you and
Right.
be like, okay, I know this person. I feel like I know this person.
Yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of them just saying, oh, this is all like created content. Here you go, packaged pretty in a bow.
Yeah.
And I'm only seeing the pretty picture, one story, right? One side of the story is what the finished product, right? But the other side of the story is all the work that went into it and the discussions and creating it. So that's or not yeah. So the documenting that creation process is another story that is like, wow, this is real. Like you can form those connections with the person that's sharing that documentation.
Yeah, it's like that connection is building that relationship in this kind of strange world that we live in with the whole digital universe.
Yeah.
And also definitely showcasing some of that vulnerability, you know, because like you said, it's not the pretty packaged end product, but the sometimes messy, often messy, like journey it takes to get there. So that's I totally agree that it's got to be the mix of both. And I think if you even look at somebody like Gary Vee's stuff, he still has those like created things, right? Like the end product is a created thing. He's just documenting the route, and I guess that's where he gets maybe more content than you sometimes see with other people. So my next question that also ties into Gary's stuff is like this idea of like micro content. So you might have that finished package at the end of the day, and he talks about it as like those pillars of content that you then break down and chunk into other little like digestible bites. And I think he at one point he recommended something like 270 pieces of content a week, I think. And so if you like break it down, he's basically suggesting something like 80 pieces of content a day, or 70 or 80 pieces of content a day. That sounds like obscene to me. Like, what are your thoughts on where do you draw the line, whether it's a small business? Do you have to, is that only something that somebody that's like trying to be a global brand can do? Like, what do you think of this crazy number of pieces of content, and what do you do about it?
I think that his point of view is that the whole content world will never be too saturated, right? There's so much content out there that even the massive amount of content that he's sharing, it's never going to be too much. Like people aren't going to be bored or sick of him because there's so much other content out there. They're just going to see him. They're going to be more likely to see him because of the amount that he's sharing.
But they're not going to oversee
They're
him
not
either.
going to oversee him. So I think that the question on whether it's too much content and whether it's attainable is to ask, what is a piece of content, right? So let's say you created a podcast or a video, like a long form video in a week, right? Splitting that up into chunks and then grabbing small quotes from that and putting that quote into a tweet, putting that quote into an image that could be on an Instagram story. So all of those add up, right? So it's taking that long form piece of content, chopping it up through forms of audio and visual, and making sure that you have all the different forms of media that are out there, and then like just repackaging it, right? So even if you have maybe 15 Instagram stories in a day, each one of those is an opportunity to reach your customer and to reach your audience. So I think that sometimes small business owners, the idea of that being too much content becomes a question of like, I don't have time for that, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, yeah, that's where I was kind of leading the question, perhaps. I mean, I wanted your thoughts on it overall, too. But,
so I think sometimes the hesitation for that much content either comes from people don't want to see me that much, or I don't have time for that. Maybe they do want to see me that much, and the market isn't too saturated for that much content. But then I don't have time, right? It's like there's these different excuses we can offer it.
Yeah, totally.
But I think that when we're facing the fact of, is the market oversaturated with content? No, that it's not.
Okay.
If certain followers on Instagram or Facebook are saying that, maybe they just need to get more followers. Like maybe they need to follow more people.
Yeah.
Right? If they're saying like, oh, you post like all your feed is all you, well, maybe follow more people, and that
Yeah.
won't that won't happen.
Sure.
Or something, right? That you
Yeah.
can always say that. Like if your relatives only have like 30 people they're following or
Yeah.
something, I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe all they see are your posts like
Yeah.
10 times a day or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for the average person who has lots of followers, that
Mhm.
wouldn't be an issue, I don't think.
Okay. Yeah.
But so it's always going to be relative to the whoever is receiving that, right?
Right.
But I think in terms of whether that's attainable, that amount of content. So if you've crossed that bridge and said, okay, the market isn't too saturated with
Mhm.
content, we can deal with this now. Now the issue is, do we have time for
Yeah.
that much? Then you need to ask yourself if it's really a time issue, or if you're just not really sure and you're second guessing every frickin' post. Like, what's actually taking the time?
Okay,
Is it
yeah.
because is it because you're not sure what to post and you're second guessing your hashtags and it's taking you too long because of
Mhm.
all of you're inside your head too much, or are you feeling insecure about a photo that you just took and you're not sure whether you should post it, so you take
Yeah.
30 different photos and then you try to edit them and that's why it takes so long?
Right.
I think that it's business owners being insecure about sharing and they're afraid. I think that's getting in the way of posting as much as they could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, what are
Okay.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I wanted to like ask you right away the question, but we'll get to it in a second. My thoughts on that are, I totally agree. I think it depends on like what market you're in. Yeah. What are my thoughts on like if people are just in their head too much?
Are people, do you think that business owners are afraid to post, or they really don't have time?
I think there's definitely,
Or for you, I
I-
guess, from
yeah.
your experience.
from my experience, sometimes I'd say like I'm afraid to post, and like I think other people are probably afraid to post, and sometimes it's like a time thing, which is why it's great that there's sort of those content management tools, which I like to make use of as well. The other thing for me is like part of our mission here and part of like our brand value, which we should actually also dive into in a second, is like the digital minimalism and sort of combating people's tech addictions. So it's a little bit hypocritical if I'm posting 10 times a day or something, because it's not really embodying what we like believe in and trying to get people more engaged in real life and less engaged on social media and stuff.
Mhm.
And so I guess that's what I forgot to like include this question in sort of what I was thinking, but now that I'm here, this is something I want to like dive into a little bit with you, because
Yeah.
this is so I think those are the things. I think there's tons of like good information, whether it's like through what you're doing with like this whole like marketing guide stuff and sort of finding your target market, but after that point there's a little bit of stuff you have to learn, like to be good at social media in any aspect. Like there's a few like I think simple things, and there's tons of people that are telling you like giving you good advice on like what you need to do, but like you need to know the platform, right?
Yep.
And that's sort of one of the first steps to oh dear, that was a huge blip on the audio. I'll cut that out. Fighting off a cold here. You need to like post content that's relevant to the platform. And one of my favorite books on this was actually Gary Vee's Jab, 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 Right Hook.
Mhm.
Did an awesome job of breaking down each platform and what looks good and what doesn't on it. I mean,
Yes.
it's a few years dated now, but also crushing it. His newer book does another good job of that. And there's lots of other people that sort of talk about it. But first, like, instead of kind of having that goal for a huge number of pieces of content, that's like he's on every platform. And if it's a small business owner that feels like they're spinning their wheels, I think the best and most successful ones, whether it's locally or whatever, are the ones that dial into one platform or maybe two platforms and do really well at those. And then perhaps they can expand it to other ones later. But it's like pick one, learn everything you can about it, which is super easy. You just Google how to make a post on Instagram,
Yeah.
and you'll find people talking about it. I mean, there's lots of there's tons of misinformation too, so be a little bit like judicious, or contact us. We'll help you like find, like I follow a lot of good people. I'm sure you follow a lot of good people. We can help people find like those people, or we can provide the information ourselves too. Whatever route you want to take to follow to figure out like what's good content. And then, yeah, using like a scheduling thing, that's sort of how I combat some of this digital minimalism. Is I do it like, I try to do it right now. The first month of business has been hard, but when everything works out, I do it one day a week, and I plan like those good pieces of content for each day. And then if I do choose to like do something spur of the moment for like an Instagram story, or something that's a little more temporary, right? That's like just sort of those more ephemeral like pieces of documentation instead of creation, then I do it. And if I don't do it, I don't beat myself up over it, because there's
Right.
another day,
Yeah.
there's another opportunity, and it's you got to think of it more as like that long term, because that's where you see a lot of people that you think are overnight successes on social media, but they've actually taken a long time to get there,
Absolutely.
and a lot of like hours and everything. And that's sort of I know this is becoming like the Gary Vee podcast, but Crush It talks about that, right?
Yeah.
And he wrote that in 2008. People hardly knew who he is, and now in 2019, if you look at it at the global grand scale, people hardly know who he is, but a lot more people then know who he is, right? It's millions versus nobody,
Right.
but millions on the scale of billions is still nobody. Like he's like, I think he recently said something about how like millions of entrepreneurs in America don't even know who he is yet.
Yeah.
And that fires him up, because like it's still that journey that you never
Yeah.
really end.
For sure.
And that's sort of yeah, so that's some of my thoughts on it.
Awesome.
But what do you think of it, this so we'll get back to, there's another question that I had that comes up, but what do you think about this whole like idea of digital minimalism? Like, do you know what that means? Have you heard anybody like talk about it, and basically what are your thoughts?
I've heard a little bit about it, but I haven't practiced it myself, obviously. I think that if that's like a business approach
Yep.
that you are intending to take, there are certain creative strategies that can help you with still achieving your content goals
Sure.
while producing digital minimalism. So one thing, I saw one of your clients in the last few days share an Instagram story after their experience.
Yeah.
So by promoting your clients to do that afterwards, it's like they're sharing it, and it's kind of
Right.
like you're just guiding them to do that. So it's
Yeah.
not exactly coming from you. It's like there's buzz around you, and it's almost like more authentic, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
So I don't know if that is kind of a way around it.
Yeah, I
But yeah.
definitely think
But
so.
my understanding of it is probably a lot less than yours.
Well, that's okay. So it's kind of it's getting at like this whole, we live in a completely distracted world because we've got basically become, in the technical sense of it, androids. We've got this phone that's always attached to us,
Yep.
and it's been engineered to be as addictive as possible as well. So it's actually a really great book that Cal Newport just wrote called Digital Minimalism, and I think, and so he's talking about, the first part of the book is talking about how addictive these things are and the negative impact it's having on our lives, and then gets into some of these strategies for maybe minimalizing these somewhat less authentic relationships in our lives that are like digital. So it's more like the idea of making the technology work for you rather than you working for the technology, which a lot of people, when they become addicted to it and they have to check their phone like 150 times a day or whatever the statistics at now.
Right.
It's you're being less involved in the real world, but you're also getting less out of that digital world too.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess my opinion on that is slightly different.
Yep.
I kind of think that the real world's changing.
Sure.
I think that it is becoming the real world.
Yeah.
What someone's version of the real world is very different to another's.
Yeah.
So what I think the real world is to maybe even certain members of my family
Mhm.
that live half an hour away from me, their real world is completely different than mine.
Right.
Right? Like my grandma, for example, doesn't have a cell phone. She likes to go like hunting in the north and
Yeah.
be completely secluded, and that's what she loves. You couldn't pay me $1 million to go there.
Yeah.
Just I wouldn't do it. So I think that everyone's idea of life and the real world is completely different. But I think that there's a lot of people that are choosing to see the negative of technology and of social media. But I think that something is only negative or positive, good or bad or whatever, once you label it so.
Right.
Right? So if you make the conscious decision to say, I'm going to make social media technology amazing for me.
Yeah.
Right? I decide that it's awesome.
Yeah.
If I decide, I have the power to say when I'm done with it and I want to put it away for the rest of the night, then I will.
Yep.
But when I want to use it to grow my business and be a boss all day, then I will. And just take that ownership and be super positive and make the choice for what direction that you're going to label it as.
Yeah. No, that's that I think really embodies the heart of the digital minimalism thing, is just is starting to be maybe a little more mindful about how you use it, and if you're using it to grow your business or build your business.
Right.
That's great. But no, I think you nailed it, and that's sort of the heart of the issue, that why digital minimalism has become a thing is because we just need to be a little more aware of not necessarily just getting sucked into a loop of watching crazy YouTube videos and going down the YouTube spiral, but doing it deliberately.
I think, and another thing on that point is I think it's important to go all in and be in the moment, whether you're working on social media for your business, or whether you are having a conversation with a client one-on-one or a meeting or whatever. Be present. I don't think that if you're active on social and you're not doing digital minimalism or whatever, that that you shouldn't be on your phone. I think that if you're actively be present with pursuing your social media strategy when you're doing that.
Yeah, totally.
And then when you're having a meeting with someone, put your phone away and meet with them and be present with them and go all in whatever the heck it is that you're doing.
Yeah, totally.
At that time.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think you do have a good appreciation of it, and that's what it really embodies.
Good. Okay, I'm glad.
All right. Another question that came to mind that sort of ties into the sort of, I don't know, it's a little bit out of line with the way this conversation's evolved, but the followers versus who you follow kind of thing. What are your thoughts on, I know some businesses or some people think that you should have a greater number of followers than people you follow. What do you think about that whole conversation? Is it actually a negative to see, the people you follow is actually greater than your followers, or is that just sort of made up?
Okay, so I hate the word should.
Yeah.
You should blah 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 blah. I just stop. Who said that, right? Who said you should? I don't know if they're the smartest person on Instagram. Who decided they're the smartest person on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
What is it that you're actually trying to achieve in this?
Okay, yeah.
So if I came across someone's profile and said, oh, they're following more people than they have followers, they suck. Who cares that I think that, right? the only person that would care if I think that is if I am the target market and the ideal persona for that business that I'm looking at their profile.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you should only actually give a shit about the people that you are targeting, right? So your ideal customer, what do they care about? And oftentimes I don't think that they're looking at how many people you're following,
Oh.
and who, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really think that. I think that they're
Yeah, that
looking
makes
at
sense.
they're looking at their like 3-second reaction of your profile, whether
Mhm.
it seems interesting to them or not.
Yeah.
Now there's so many different like tactical things that
Yeah.
you can do to get more followers, but it's also important to ask these followers that you have, if you have like 10,000 followers that aren't engaged and they're not your ideal customer, how valuable is that to your business?
Yeah.
Right? Like what's the point? Right? Whereas if you have 300 that are fully engaged and all 300 of those people are commenting or are fans and engaged and they're commenting and liking your stuff, that looks
Yeah.
a heck of a lot better.
Cool,
So
yeah.
actually Instagram actually looks at the engagement of your posts much more than the follower count. So they'll show your post up on the explore page
Mhm.
much more likely and much higher if you have higher engagement, which has nothing to do with your follower count. It has
Cool.
everything to do with how many people comment and engage with your posts.
Mhm. That makes sense. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's I feel, I don't know, there was something that kind of was in the back of my mind for a long time, and so that's it's a good point, and it's good to know, and I think it also goes into, you probably should be following the people that are engaging with you, because
Mhm.
that's that next level of relationship building when they're outside of whether it's your small business or if it's online. You're actually like engaging with them, and they feel more value and connection out of that relationship
Right.
that you've got there.
And I think depending on what your goals are for Instagram specifically, while we're on Instagram,
Yeah.
if you are trying to attract more followers, which is usually what people are trying to do,
Yep.
it might be more advantageous to follow hashtags than accounts specifically, and follow and turn on notifications
Yeah.
for highly influential accounts in your industry. So
Oh.
if you find that there is like a competitor or a really influential account that is relevant to you, and
Mhm.
your target followers are following that content or engaging with them,
Yeah.
if you turn on notifications so that as soon as they post something and then you comment on it right away, then all of your potential followers that you're trying to get their attention, they will see your comment on the top.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And even once they start commenting on stuff, liking and commenting on their comments.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
commenting on stuff is much more important than actually following them.
Right, but making, I would like to add to that, making genuine comments.
Yes.
Because we've all seen those comments that are just like
Heart
yeah,
emoji.
a
Yeah.
heart, and then like
Thumbs up.
thumbs up, and then like our page, or like, you can tell those ones that are just somebody that's spamming every single page that they
Yes,
get
of
to.
course.
So make sure that it's actually relevant, and
Yes.
I think creating some value there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cool.
That was implied, but yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, some
for
people
sure.
don't realize it or whatever, just offering that next level of advice with
Oh,
that, I
yeah.
think is important.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
No, I think so. It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It's fun talking about stuff that you love.
Yeah, totally.
And stuff that you're excited about.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a lot of the law of attraction.
Yeah.
Right? So as you talk about things you love and that positive energy is flowing, then you just get super excited and happy about it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually what the flow state's all about. Yeah, so I don't know whether that got you a little bit into the zone with the conversation or not, but that's, I guess, a cool side effect that I didn't think of that could be a part of the actual conversation here, or these podcasts we do, but it really does help to the more, and my sort of philosophy with it is the more that you learn about flow, and also the more that you practice it in whatever you do, the easier it gets to replicate or get back into that state.
Right.
It's sort of like, yeah, the real recognize real, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, the more that you do it, the better and easier it is, because that actually is like ultimately what meaning in life is doing those things that you love, or at least sort of being immersed in the present moment as much as possible. Cool.
Absolutely. But actually that reminds me of some book that I was listening about. It's called like The Atomic, have you heard of it? It's like
Atomic Habits?
Yes. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I've listened to some interviews with him, but I have not yet read the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I totally want to download the audio file for that, because I've been trying to figure out like how to create change, and like even when it comes to like even like social media and being more active, and how do you like do you really have time for this? I'm too busy. If you create habits around that and create like the process in your day-to-day habits, then that's something that you can just ingrain into your day-to-day life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, with those habits of thinking positively, mindfulness, all of these things that are really, really good that we know we need to do, developing those habits and the process.
Yeah.
That's the key, I think. So I really want to read it, or not read it, listen to it. But
if we go down, this would be like many more hours of conversation if we went down this route, so I'll try to just hold off on too much. But yeah, that's I'll have to check that book out too. I know it's on, have you heard of Scribed?
I have, but I have the Audible.
Oh, you have the Audible one? Okay, yeah. So Scribed actually has it as well. Okay. It's kind of like the Netflix of books. Oh, okay. And they do audiobooks as well now. So you can download, like, for $8.99 a month, you get, like, up to 3 audiobooks. And a lot of them are, like, the brand new, like, awesome audiobooks and stuff. But you don't keep it. So that's the difference, where some people do like to have the copy that is theirs to keep, which is why Audible can be still good, too. But, yeah, I definitely want to check that book out. Even though I do read probably too much about like habits and productivity and stuff, I might not necessarily need to read it, but it sounds cool. And
but
like
if you
James Clear is there, James Clear sounds like a very like interesting person. I've listened to some of his interviews around the book topic and just like his stuff. So yeah, I'll check it out.
2 things that I've learned to take out of my vocabulary from, I like hired a business coach, and he's been helping me with a lot of this.
Cool.
Is take the word should and the word need. Okay. So like, I need to do this. Yeah. No, like I want to do this, or I'm going to do this, and then just take should out, because should is a bad word. Yeah. Yeah. Should will bring you no joy.
That's true. Yeah.
Marie Kondo for you.
Yeah.
Whatever sparks joy.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
So, I think we'll wrap it up for today at that point, because we could probably go on for many more hours.
I think so. Like just like stay here and like nah.
Well, now you've got a float to try if you're still up for it. So anyway, thanks for joining me on this podcast, Mallory.
Thank you, RJ.
Cool.
Cool.
So that was an hour.
Oh my god.
I know, right?